If you're a Brit, you're bound to be familiar with Hammer Studios, most famous for their Dracula series starring Christopher Lee and their Frankenstein series starring Peter Cushing. The film company was at full swing in the late 50s to early 70s, producing near 100 films in that period. Their films were highly gothic, but there was one thing about them that distinguished them from Corman's Poe adaptations. They had blood and sex, and lots of both. For the late 50s, they turned out some shockingly grisly stuff. This film here was before The Killer Shrews. That says it all. But in the late 70s, they slowly began to run out of ideas for horror movies, and between 1979 and 2010, not one movie was theatrically released with Hammer behind it. Then, out of nowhere, the comeback came. Hammer began making horror movies again, each one of them with their trademark style. It was awesome knowing the studio was back again doing what they do best. The only problem was, none of the movies they'd done so far were particularly big financial successes. One of the most widely known so far of their recent horror movies, Let Me In, grossed only $4 million more than what it cost. But that brings us to The Woman in Black, which is arguably the most famous of their comeback films thus far, and certainly the biggest financial success, as it's already grossed almost double of what it cost. There's no denying that the reason it made so much money is because of its star, Daniel Radcliffe, who now cannot avoid being typecast as the boy who lived, but the film itself has Hammer written all over it. Set in Edwardian times, the film follows a young lawyer played by Radcliffe who is sent to a remote town deep in the English countryside. He stays in a somewhat decaying old house where several instances of suicide took place, and from then on, it's straight up ghost story. What makes the film a good watch is the way it takes every cliché of the haunted house genre and completely modernises them to appeal to a newer audience. And it does it really well. It builds an incredibly strong atmosphere throughout, and it quite literally had me on the edge of my seat, at least when I didn't have my fingers in my ears because I knew something was going to pop out and scare me. The lighting during these moments was absolutely perfect. Since almost everything was covered in shadows, you never knew if there'd be a silent, far away, out of focus apparition in a dark area, or if something would jump out of nowhere nearby and scare the crap out of you. It was masterful. And the use of the anticipating silence was just classic and used to its full advantage. The only nitpick I have in this section is that some of the more jumpy moments could have been a bit more creative. I mean, many of the jump moments were brilliant. The window scene, the rocking chair scene, they were probably the best moments of the entire film. But for the first half hour at least, it was always a long build-up and then a dumb payoff, or a Luton's bus, if you will. I don't mind if you do it once or twice, but you did it too many times, that's all. The special effects also look really cheap at times, but for me that just added to the charm and reminded me I was watching a good old Hammer movie. But I know you fangirls are all here for Raddy, so how did he do? Well, meh. I won't say he was horrible, but he just didn't do it for me. He can pull some good facial expressions and the more physical moments of his are executed okay, but when he was speaking it was just a bit too bland. I won't say he was miscast, because when I saw him in the trailer I thought he looked right for the part, and after seeing the movie I still stand by that, but I think I just expected a little more from him. I mean, I do like the guy, he obviously seems to have a lot of respect for Hammer, and he clearly has a very good understanding of film, theatre and acting in general, but he just wasn't convincing enough for me here. But again, it's nothing awful, and when you think about it, the shocks of the films are the biggest stars. The other actors were fine, none of them had much material to work with, not particularly memorable, that was it. And without revealing too much, the title character herself was terrifying. For most of the film she was just standing around in the background, which itself is done very creepily, but things get serious towards the end. The plot honestly isn't that important to the film. Like I said, it's mostly just a load of horror cliches, and the ending is pure Hammer. But for the most part, the film exists through its shocks, so you could consider it a little empty of any real drama. But it's only a horror movie, and for what it is, it's done with style, genuine atmosphere, and some really good build-ups. The direction is fine, the film looks good, the music is eerie, all the elements of a fun, traditional Hammer chiller. I give it 6.5 out of 10. I have no doubt in my mind that it'll be a top seller this Halloween, so check it out.